everyone. Welcome to today's really special event. I'm so excited to have this conversation with our beloved JAI coaches. This is called the Coaches Roundtable. And if you are listening and joining us, yes, go ahead and say hello in the chat. Hi, Sarah from New Hampshire. Tiffany from North Carolina is here. Rushika from Bermuda. We're gonna all come visit you. Christy from Florida. Dolnita. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It's really great to get to spend this hour with you. If you have questions for any of our panelists as we are going through our session today, please don't hesitate to share them in the chat. We are really open to anything and everything that you are curious about, that you have questions about. This is a very welcoming space. We are a community who is really led by a value of safety and non-judgment. And so please know that whatever questions that may arise as we talk today about transformational parenting and the work that we're doing here at the JAI Institute for Parenting, your questions are welcome. So hi, Patricia, Stacy, I think I just saw your enrollment come through. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you. Very cool. So before we get started, I thought we would just quickly go through our amazing panel here and just have everyone introduce yourself, as you heard in the prelogue. And so Maria, would you be willing to start?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. My name is Maria Fondeur, as you can see there, and I am in the Dominican Republic. And if you want to find more about the work I do, I'm at actually Instagram right now, working on my website. It's at mariale.fondeur. So hope to see you. I'm very excited about being here with you all.
Thanks, Maria. Meghan.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here as well. I am in California and I am at gratefulparenting.org.
Awesome. Brandon.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brandon Miller, and I am in the very middle of Illinois, in Champaign, Illinois.
Illinois.
Yes, I'm a Colorado transplant, but I am actually not even out of the gate yet. I'm a coach in training, almost out of the gate, and I've already gotten my business going. You can find me anywhere on social media, Confluence Parenting, and my website should be up and running here the next handful of days.
And your awesome podcast. Make sure to tell them about your awesome podcast.
Yes, I have a podcast for dads called the Daddyhood Rocks podcast, and still waiting to jump into season 2. And I plan on doing a generic or general parents podcast as well through Confluence Parenting.
Love it. We love our dads so much. Every time a dad enrolls in this program, we have like a dance in the team. So good. So glad you're here, Brandon. Jess.
Hello. So happy to be here. Delighted to be in the company of all these fabulous individuals. Welcome. So I'm Jessica Day. I live in coastal Maine in the United States, transplant from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And you can reach me on social media, Instagram and Facebook, Jessica H. Day. Same thing with my website, jessicahday.com.
Thank you. Pam.
Oh my goodness, I feel like I'm in the presence of so much light and goodness. This is amazing. Hi, y'all. My name is Pam Snyder. I am the owner of Fruitful Families Coaching. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Fruitful Families Coaching. On Instagram, it is Fruitful Families _coaching. I also have a Fruitful Families Coaching podcast that you can find on every major podcast outlet. So excited to have a podcast friend here, Brandon. Fist bump. Yeah, and I'm so happy to be here. I am right outside Nashville, Tennessee. We are here from New York City, so cultural big shift there, but so happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Kiva.
Of course. Destini.
My button. Hi, everyone. This is so wonderful. I love this container so much. I am Destini. My socials are Manifest Destiny on Instagram. My website is destinyand.com, and I am in Virginia.
So
It's
good
cold.
to have you here. Cynthia.
Hello all, I'm so glad to be here today. I'm from Mexico. I am in Mexico City. I mostly work with Spanish-speaking families and moms. And you can find me in Viviendo en Familia Coaching in Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So it's me.
You're amazing. You guys, there was a request in the chat if in a moment when you're not speaking to share your Instagram handles, your website. That way it'll be there in perpetuity and we can send that out to people as well. So I wanted to take this opportunity of having you all here to really address some of the biggest questions that we get from potential students in our program, people who are considering becoming a parenting coach. And I think one of the biggest that comes up, I know it did for me, is, who am I to be a parenting coach when I yelled at my child yesterday, or I made a huge mistake with my own kid? How could I possibly think that I could tell other people how to parent? And Brandon, I'm wondering if you would start. Did you have that mindset block? And if so, how were you able to overcome it?
That's such a great question. Absolutely. Because I come from a long line of yellers and angry people. And so you do what you know. And so going into the training, I definitely had in the back of my mind, what kind of hypocrite am I? And so the thing is, just as I started to shift my mindset to, this is a journey. We're not achieving perfection here, and that's not going to happen, but we're achieving growth. And as I started to see growth in myself, I started to recognize, I need to give myself grace, and there is room for grace, and there's grace for my children, and there's grace for my clients. And so it's a journey that we're all on, and it's a supportive journey.
Beautiful. Meghan, I know that you came to this work with a lot of family trauma and disruption. Would you be willing to share a little bit about your story and how that led you to Jai?
Sure. I adopted my son, and he had a lot of trauma to begin with. We brought him home when he was 6 months old, and then my husband passed away in 2018, and then the pandemic hit, and I was searching for a new career, and I was struggling with his behaviors, my grief, his grief. And so I was simultaneously looking for help for him, talking to psychiatrists, and doing career search. And I found the Jai program, and it was really difficult for me to make the decision, but I kept telling myself, my gut was telling me, this is where it is. It's parent-centric. It's, if I change the way I respond to my son, I can see differences already. So we were talking to a psychiatrist, and it was over Zoom, and she immediately diagnosed my son with ADD after talking to him over Zoom. And then she wanted to prescribe Zoloft for him. And I was very hesitant with that. And so I said, give me a month actually, of trying this parent-centric, empowered parent, gentle parenting stuff. And I did. And I went to her a month later and was able to say, our relationship, we're so much closer. I'm finding cooperation. It's not perfect, but I am no longer fearful, and I know that this works. And so then I can tell this story to other parents that are struggling with, their psychiatrist saying, get them on medication, and then give this a try first. Try this first, because the medication has so much side effects. And so that's my story in a nutshell.
Well, we'll come back to you because I know you've just been taking the torch and running with it, which has been so amazing to see. So we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Anyone else you can just maybe raise your hand. Did you have a real sort of like, who am I to moment? Yes, Maria.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Children are my life. I studied child development. I thought it was like I was gonna ace at parenting. I came into parenting like I'm going to be the superstar of parenting. And of course, for a while I was, because I was, bringing in everything I had learned, and they were tiny and it was easy and it was perfect, I thought. And then I realized, once all those behavior patterns from growing up also in a yelling family, woo for those yellers, that when they were hitting that 4 or 5 age, and I was trapped in the middle of COVID. This awful monster came out and I didn't know her. She was the most awful human, and it was part of me, and I would lock myself in my room. I don't want to see my children. And when I did see them, I would explode. And I recognized right away that feeling of, oh my gosh, I feel trapped in my family. Oh my goodness. I am my mother. I am becoming my mother. And doesn't matter how much I know about child development, there's something else inside of me. And I don't know what it is. And this was happening at the same time that I had this vision of a retreat space where everybody was working on themselves, where mothers were working on themselves and healing their past trauma, and the children and that relationship, that space between them was being healed. And when I saw these two things in parallel, like, this is my situation in my family and I need support right now. And this is what I visualize as a perfect container for healing in the space in between families. I started saying, I need to find coaching. I need to find the space to learn how to have this conversation with myself, a place that was safe for me to explore what was going on, regardless of what I knew or I thought I knew about childhood. So yes.
Beautiful. Thank you, Maria. Destini.
So I, like Maria, have the background and it's so tools based. And so I actually went into this feeling very confident, like, yes, I can help families. And my moment was during the program. and during the program, my daughter, I think maybe we were just pulling out the blind spots, but it was like every week we learned something. It was like an example in my house to deal with it. And it really, empowered me to realize that as amazing as tools are, there's something to be said about acceptance and the vulnerability and that empowerment piece. And I feel so much more equipped to help parents not just know what to do, but to accept who they are and the natural gifts that they have already. But yeah, so my moment of, oh crap, Can I do this, was during the program.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful point, Destini, because I think it's a difficult, we are different here in JAI because we're not a behavior modification program, because we're not prescriptive in how we, tell parents how to get their kids to behave. We don't have tools. We don't have sticker charts. We don't operate on that surface level. This is a personal transformation program for parents. And I think sometimes, right, people get into our coach training program or start working with one of our coaches and they're like, whoa, wait, where's the checkbox? But it's so much better. Yeah. Why do you think, what has that shift been like for you?
I think that it's so much better because it's allowed me to get closer to the pieces that I haven't healed, and to accept what's showing up and being mirrored in my child, and to give her the freedom to move through those things in a way that I wasn't able to move through them in my childhood. And it's been very difficult to be the safe space, but I think that this program has really allowed me to feel more confident in the behaviors that come up when you're the safe space, and to just go with the flow and accept and be willing, and to keep the relationship in spite of what's going on. And so I'm so grateful for that.
Chills.
It's good
So
stuff.
good. Jessica.
And yeah, just to add to that, I feel like I was able to integrate the way that Jai approached it. Wasn't just a tool, that I would be like, oh, what was that tool? I have to think of it, or what are the words I'm supposed to use? But instead, it went so much deeper into a place where I was dropping into myself and able to integrate, what was happening versus like, what am I supposed to do? And how do I do it? And wait a minute, like, let me check it. But instead, it was a whole reframe of how to approach who I was being and what I was witnessing. And like, I know, like before children, I was capable, confident, productive. And then I had my babies and I was like, oh, not uncertain and feeling exhausted and completely unproductive. And so I was responding and just trying to survive through that. And there was just no accessing me, living from that anxiety. And Jai sort of steps in and really trains us, I think, into how to hold space for whatever is happening and arising. And I think what Destini just said about safe space is everything, recognizing that we can't learn or do anything unless we feel safety. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like that question of, or that belief that I need to be the perfect parent to be a parenting coach is actually the antithesis of what we discover, which is that our vulnerabilities as a parent is actually what makes us a powerful mentor, leader, guide. We can't possibly hold the space for other people's mess if we don't learn to fall in love with our own. Yeah. Cynthia, tell me a little bit about, your work since graduating, Jai. I feel like, another big thing that comes up for people is, can this actually be a business? Can I actually make a living as a parenting coach? I mean, my fundamental belief is that, just for our own kids, so much more than worth it. And of course, we want you going out, working with clients. What's your experience been of that?
Before Jai, I didn't have a lot of tools. Like, it was kind of like, what I do. I didn't feel confident. And after going through Jai, I really developed confidence that I could work with clients, that I had tools, that I have knowledge. And I started working with clients. And now I can tell you, like, I'm starting a group right now that is people from Peru, people like, I have a mom from Peru, one mom from Panama, one mom from other places in Colombia and Argentina. I'm really happy that I get to be international with moms, of course, Mexican moms, but it's been so powerful to me to be able to get to these people, to these moms, beautiful, and to help them experience this transformation. And I think that when we work on this business, like, moms want transformation. They really do want it. And so my experience has been that now I am reaching more people. It has been like 2 years since I finished, I graduated, but now, like, little by little, step by step, now I'm reaching more people. I usually work with groups because of the cost. For Latin America, it's kind of like expensive if I charge a lot. So groups were better, but I know that I can work also with moms one by one. So it has been amazing.
Amazing. Pam, so Pam actually recently joined the team at Jai, and she had a really successful parent coaching business prior to that. And so Pam, because you talk to so many of our potential clients and are such a huge part of our community, I'm wondering if you have any advice or kind of ways to think differently about the business growing part of this conversation.
Yeah, so I think your very first question leads so well into this question, like this imposter syndrome piece. Who am I to tell another parent what to do? this is the piece that I think held me back for so long in a business, owning a business. And I think holds a lot of us back is even when we feel empowered, who are we to step into a business that tells other parents what to do? So, talking with people on the phone and the fear of all of the pieces that come with owning a business, taxes, social media, all of the pieces. I think what was so helpful to me with Jai is that those of us, I know in this space especially, when we are a special breed here at Jai, we have a different value set. We go about things with safety and gentleness, and that is not the business world. So Jai equipping coaches at the end of their training with specific business coaching that speaks to that type of person and that type of coach and that type of business that is not out there for the bottom dollar. We're out there to change the world. And that I think one of the most important things I learned business-wise with Jai was they can coexist. They can coexist. The mindset piece of knowing you can be successful and be gentle, soft, and safe. They can exist in the same space. Oh my gosh, mind blowing for me. So I think that because Jai offers that piece at the end of your training, it really sets you up for success in a world that thinks of success in a different way than Jai does, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, it's a very different thing to get out of my bed in the morning and put myself on the line and put myself out there because of our mission. Before I became a coach, I tried MLM. I, tried all the things to make money from home. I was considering becoming a real estate agent, like all the other moms in my neighborhood, but I didn't do it for me. I needed it to be about kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is scary, jumping into that space. I feel like it's one of the pieces that holds people back the most is how can I possibly start my own business? How can I run my own business? I have 4 children at home and just knowing that Jai also equips you with how to step into that discomfort, how to function in that discomfort and that you can use fear to propel you instead of holding you back was huge for me. Yeah.
Thanks, Pam. Destini, I mean, you're kind of like Instagram famous. And I know, from having coached so many business owners, micro business owners over the last 12 years, that visibility and being exposed to so many people is a huge fear that keeps people from stepping into their passion, their purpose, being somebody who's a voice for justice in the world. Can you share a little bit about how you've been able to navigate that? I mean, you are an extraordinary woman. I want to learn from you.
I think for me, really, it is returning to my why, because I still have those moments when I'm about to record a video and I'm like, is this going to connect? Or I feel weird. I still feel very uncomfortable on camera, but I think about how lonely it was to know intuitively that what I was taught and how I was raised was not right, but have no verbiage and no community and nothing to really connect to that was opposite or that was different. And I remember I saw a Dr. Shefali video for the first time. And that's really when I was like, I had that moment of this connects, this makes sense. These are my people. Like, it's not just me. And anytime I sit down, I'm like, I want to be able to give somebody else that moment and that sense of community. And so I just try to return to the why, click record, and I just send it out. And I think that when we start from that heart-centered place, it's going to resonate with who it's supposed to resonate with.
So beautiful. I love that so much. Audience, if you have specific questions that you would like our coaches to answer, please do post them in the chat. I saw one come through. I think it was about what Meghan was talking about. And Meghan, I think you were talking about Jai. Yes,
Yes, I was talking about Jai, the psychiatrist was just through my health insurance.
Yeah. We often hear from parents with children with neurodiversity, children with mental health conditions, who in traditional parenting are told they need to be parented differently, right? That there are different ways that this child needs to be met to moderate their behavior. Because our work at JAI is about parent-centric coaching and really looking to the universal needs that all human beings have, right? Being seen, being validated, physical and emotional safety, variety, right? There are actual human needs that all of us share. And when we speak in that universal language, whatever is happening for that individual child is welcome, accepted, perfect, and appreciated. And so we get out of that frame of trying to fix, which I think is what Meghan was pointing to. It's transformational. What happened with your son? How did his experience change because of that?
It was just the transformation of me not overreacting, he would have a behavior and I would get so fearful that I would yell or I would do, try to fix him. And when I stopped doing that, calmed myself down and then just actively listened to him, then we were really connected, and we are really connected. And he didn't have the same kind of behaviors. He wasn't jumping on me and pulling at me to get my attention. My attention was something he could depend on and he could trust. And I wasn't gonna get scared if he told me something that I thought might be gory or something. I just said, this is my son, this is where he is. It doesn't mean that he's going to be an axe murderer in the future, which is what I really thought. And once I calmed myself down, it really calmed him.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they really are our little mirrors. I often have, because of, what I do and where I sit, I have a very common experience where I pop open Facebook in the morning with my coffee, and the first post that I see gets the waterworks going. And that happened for me one morning, Brandon, with a story that you shared. Still make me a little teary about your son. Can you share it with everyone? Oh my gosh, I got to get a tissue.
So this was just a couple months ago, maybe not even a couple months ago. So we have two sons. They're amazing, 9 and 7. And the youngest he's a lot like me, and we do everything with gusto. Laugh with gusto, play with gusto, yell and scream with gusto, everything with gusto. That should be his nickname. And so one evening, we were on the doorstep of a tantrum. I don't even remember what it was regarding. And for a brief second, I felt myself welling up with that being a trigger for me. And then I was able to get myself regulated pretty quickly. And I was able to then walk through what he was needing in that moment. And it took about 5 minutes to kind of walk through what exactly he was feeling and needing. And what normally would have taken about 30 minutes or maybe longer, took about 5 minutes. And in times past, that would have ended up being a timeout situation. And those were brutal. We'd have him sit in a chair in the kitchen, and, whatever age he is, we'd, set the timer for that many minutes, blah, blah, blah. And, if you don't stop screaming, we'll start the timer over. And so he'd be yelling and screaming, he'd be mad, I'd be upset, and it would be horrible every single time. And so this event, I'm going to call it an event because it was monumental in my mind, of being able to talk through and get to co-regulate with my son. A little while later, it was just about time for bedtime, and I was in the kitchen. I called him to come talk to me, and I said, "Hey, buddy, you remember how things were when we would yell and scream and have these long timeouts in the kitchen. Those were horrible, weren't they? Yeah. And you know what? I don't miss that at all. Do you? No. And buddy, I'm really thankful that we have been able to talk through this stuff and to understand each other better. What do you think? And he got this really big grin on his face. And again, with everything with gusto. And so he stood straight up, got this grin on his face, and he put his arms out and like fell into me, into this hug. And he said, "Daddy, that's my I agree hug." And we laughed, and then he went off to bed. And that was a pivotal moment for me, just where it dawned on me that this works. This is really powerful. This is transformational stuff, not just for me, but for people all around the world. I mean,
it's so often that these like massive moments are just micro moments, right? It's like the little tiny moment that would have gone this way before that goes this way now, and you're like, oh, and it just changes everything. God, I love that story, Brandon.
Absolutely. Thank you. And it was earlier in the summer. I was at my breaking point. My wife and sons were traveling, and I was home taking care of things. And as a social worker, I knew that I was in a desperate moment. I needed to social work myself. Yeah. And so I if someone would have heard me talking to myself, they probably would have thought I'd fallen off, gone off the edge. But I for about an hour, I talked to myself about what I needed. Because parenting at that point with our youngest was becoming so disheartening, discouraging, and not that we wanted to give up at all, but it was just like, what in the heck do we do? Why is he so oppositional? Why is he this? Why is he that? And yet working through this and seeing the transformation in me has made all the difference in the world.
That brings up another question, and I've seen a little bit of back and forth about it in the chat. With a background as a social worker, and I don't know if any of the rest of you were trained mental health care providers, we get this question a lot. What's the difference between coaching and therapy? When should I use one for other? Why would a therapist become a coach? Can you speak to that quickly, Brandon?
Sure. No, I think that the slightly inaccurate label is one deals with the past, one deals with the future. Because in good therapy, you talk about both.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing with therapy is you're looking for a diagnosis. You're looking for a specified diagnosis where you can have some supports in place to help you to work through those things. And of course, there's not a diagnosis in coaching. And so, yes, in coaching, it's definitely more forward thinking and goal oriented, although there are goals involved in therapy as well. But it's primarily that diagnosis piece.
That's a really great distinction. We have so many mental health practitioners, educators, pediatricians, traditional healthcare providers coming into this program. I think a lot of it, from what I hear too, is the freedom, the flexibility to operate as a coach looks different than in those traditional frames, if you will. Oh my gosh. All right, this is so good. I'm just looking through the comments. Amy is saying, I need guidance. I've been told that it's abnormal. It's overwhelming at times how individuals discourage parents about such a delicate situation. I love my babies. Oh, Amy, sending so much love. The world is full of opinions, how we should be parenting our kids. And I think a lot of what I hear from our coaches that we get here is a lot of confidence in our own knowing. Maria, did you have something?
Yeah, and I think it'll kind of mixes everything together. It was bouncing off Brandon. I was thinking as he was speaking how this process is really about integration. Like you sort of start seeing things that you weren't seeing before because you start conversing about it. And then all of a sudden it starts becoming an integration in your body and in the way that you act with your children and the way you act with the world. And one thing that I've learned is that with coaching, when you're coaching a parent, it's like a reintegration. You're repeating it again, you're repeating it again. So it gives you this longevity. It's almost like you go into the program to transform yourself. However, in the coaching, in the experience of coaching others, you're actually continue transforming yourself and revisiting those parts of you that you are, you might have integrated at some level, but then you realize, oh my goodness, there's another layer. So even as I say this, I'm thinking, no matter where you are in your parenting, no matter where you are in your self-confidence, in your self-love, in anything, you will be able as a coach to revisit this again and again and integrate it throughout your lifetime, because it does become a practice, and coaching becomes almost like the propulsing, I don't know, is that a word in English? The the propeller, a word that
Propulsion?
I'm trying to think of it in English, that propels you to keep on that path of self-transformation and of really unconditional love and communication with your children, right? So
beautiful. Thank you. There's a comment/question from Anne from Nigeria. Hey, Anne. So Anne says she's an aspiring parenting coach. My question is, in our world today, a lot of children are being raised by authoritarian parents, leaving many children experiencing anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, low self-esteem, becoming people pleasers, having insecurities. How do you deal with authoritarian parents who think that traditional model is good parenting? Just raise your hand if you want to chime in. Pam, and then Destini.
Oh, just holding space for this, holding space for what this does. And so many of us even hearing the word authoritarian parenting. And just because I am a Christian parenting coach, this is something I run head on with in almost every client that I see. So when it comes down to it, like we're talking about here, parenting and the way Jai approaches parenting is about us as parents and not about our children. So if we are able to heal the pieces that are triggering us, if we are able to understand where the need to control, where this grasping for control over our children and their behavior and how their behavior reflects on us as parents and as on people, when we're able to release that and understand the brain science below their behavior and those types of pieces, we're able to speak to that authoritarian piece and really get curious as to why that type of parenting resonates with them, why that's what they are doing. Because so often when you get to that space, they question it as well. And then we're able to step into some healing and some understanding there. But quite often it's because, one, they don't know any different and we do what's been modeled. Two, there's tons of fear around releasing power. And three, just because there are unhealed wounds in the parents themselves. And Jai does such a great job incorporating all of those pieces into their coaching.
Amazing. Thanks, Pam. Destini.
Pam, thank you for that. Literally, when she read the word authoritarian, my whole body was just like, it's a physiological thing for certain. I think that one of the most powerful themes in the program is empathy. And the biggest surprise through the program for me was how it impacted my relationships with people that weren't children. And so anytime I am encountering someone that is authoritarian, I look at it from the instance and the stance that I can give them, if I first give them what is up underneath the behavior, just like with our children, there's a sense of safety, there's a sense of softening, and there's a more heightened sense of receptivity. And I've had so many conversations with people that are like, I used to yell or I used to spank, and what you're saying, it kind of makes sense. And I don't think that I'm saying anything different. I just think that there's a piece of it that understands this is a child whose needs weren't met, who didn't feel seen, who didn't feel heard. And just like with my kids, I can live in the space of and I can hold you to the truth and I can still have compassion for you. I think that is the space that I try to live in with authoritarian parents.
I think, obviously here our work is about supporting this transformation in families, transformational parenting for children. And from my perspective, right, as a leader of this organization, I believe that we are in a confluence of leadership styles. And the old way of leading was, I'm right, you're not. And we see all the power struggles and the violence and the disruption that frame creates in the world. And so these leaders that are here and all the coaches in our organization, and I hope me too, are willing to come to leadership with a humility where we put down that need to be right. And we actually get really curious and want to understand rather than tell. And this is huge when you are parenting in a different way than the world parents. As I said, there's a whole lot of people that are going to have opinions about that, whether it's your mother-in-law or maybe even your co-parent. And when we put down the rock of I'm right and actually just open and get curious, it's like the impact that we can make is so much more profound than that other way, which is just hurting people. Anyway, I'm not supposed to be talking, but I get all excited. Jessica, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, the idea that, when a behavior is happening and we get that authoritarian approach, one is the generational, we're inheriting this. We do what was done to us, what we've seen. When we become parents, none of us know what it's like until we're in it. And suddenly we're there, we're exhausted. We've got all kinds of things going on. And it's just like the quickest, fastest route is like control, stop the behavior. I'm uncomfortable, and so I think it's, this is so common that the authoritarian thing is still so prevalent. My parents, I mean, sometimes I had it for sure. And then I catch myself and say, whoa, I'm getting uncomfortable and I want to stop what's making me uncomfortable. And the quickest way is to shut my child down. Right. So I think it's sort of organic, the process through this program in JAI, through the stages and, emotional intelligence and all the things that we use in the learning. I think of Gabor Mate's work, asking, instead of like, how do I make it stop? It's to reframe it with, what do they need me to know? It's just this different way of asking questions, that isn't natural necessarily to us because we've never done this before. We don't know what we're doing necessarily. Like, welcome to the club. It's I don't mean to belittle it. I know it's a serious question perhaps, but it's just, anyway.
Yeah. There's a follow-up question in the chat. What about the other extreme, right? Because there's very dominant power over parenting, and there's also very permissive power under parenting. And I see this quite a lot, out in the world where it's almost as if the parents' needs become subservient or less important than the child's. Maria, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I'd love to, yeah. When I work with parents and the way that I like to show them is that we're looking at inside into what our experience was as children and reconnecting with that emotional experience and seeing how it relates to how your children are experiencing it, knowing that they're different. But so in saying that, anything that has to do with power dynamics, usually it's like I see it as a pendulum.
Yes.
We pendulate in one way or the other. So maybe what would happen if in your family, when you were growing up, you had a very authoritative parent, power over parenting. You might go into the power under, or even if you want to be in that middle range, that secure attachment, power with parenting, you don't know what that feels like. So you go into power under because you're wanting to be cherished by your children. You want it to belong. You don't want to feel like you're being pushed away. There's a lot underneath that, and it comes from our childhood. So whether you're exploring power over, whether you're exploring power under, it really is a basis of fear. Basis of, how do I get my voice heard, or how do I feel loved? So what are the limiting stories below that? And that's what we work with doing. And there's maybe one, maybe there's two or three, maybe you go from one side to the other. Thinking that there's a cookie cutter path is not true. You can be, anything could happen. You could be power over in some topics, power under in other topics, and just knowing that you as a parent and your experience is so unique, so special, and there's so much learning and so much richness. I like to, when parents come with like, this is happening in my house, I'm like, ooh, juicy stuff to explore. So that's the way that we want to like transform that victim, that I need to dominate feeling, whatever is going on, however you confront your fears, we want to soften it and say, well, how can we bring curiosity to that? How can we bring playfulness almost to this experience? Because that's what we have. We have this rich, raw material of parenting to really explore who we are and how we can build from there and scaffold to the next level, to closer to that power with model, and slowly and softly, without, destroying your sense of safety as it is.
So good. I think, obviously parents come to us because they're yelling and they want to stop, or, they're having a teenager who's, experimenting with risky behaviors, or they're going through a separation or divorce. And there's sort of all these like, fix my situation. Zintia, maybe you would speak to this for a minute. How do you help parents make that shift? Because if they come to a parenting coach thinking, well, I just want to get my child to stop behaving in this way, and then you hold up in the mirror and say, guess what? Can you speak to that a little bit, and how does that work?
Sure. It's because we need to see each other. When I see a parent that can, like, they're looking into their children, like I try to help them see that everything their child is doing and how they're feeling and how they're responding is about them. I mean, not a child, but about them. And so they need to look into the mirror, as you said, and look into all of that. I really like what you said some time ago, Kiva, about how they're looking into the mirror through this window of like judgment, beliefs, and a lot of other things, and they cannot see clearly to see their child with clarity. So that's what I teach them. Like, you're like, all of this is between you and your child. And so you need to take it out. And we're working to take this and to clean your window, to clean your, and so when you do this, then you'll be able to go into your inner wisdom and know how to deal with the things that happen, because that's what we want. Parents that can have the confidence that they can handle their children. And this is so powerful, because when they see, oh, I could do this, and now my child is not fearful of me, and then he's coming to me, and now he's telling me what happens to him, and now he's open to tell me what he needs. That's so wonderful. It's just amazing how relationships change so much.
Yeah, it's wild. It just turns everything the way they tell you it's supposed to be, gets turned on its head. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's what makes it worth it, to move through our fears, to move through our fraud imposter syndrome, to move through, oh my gosh, I'm going to go have to talk to people and get on a sales call. It's worth it because a teenager is going to come tell you when there's a, life altering problem. And an adult child is going to come home for Christmas and be delighted. And I don't think that that's common in certainly our culture here in the United States. It's something that's been lost. And I'm really, really grateful, for all of us and the families that we touch, that we get to shift that experience. We just have a few minutes left. So as I try to not cry through this entire roundtable conversation, if you have any final questions in the audience, please go ahead and share. I see someone's hand raised. Let me see if I know how to do that. I'm not sure I do. Amy, if you could just type it in the chat for this. Any closing thoughts from our panel? This has been a very, just sort of flowing conversation. We've covered a lot of topics. Yeah, Pam.
I just want to speak super quickly to some of the talk I've heard in the chat over here. And, it's funny, Destini, just to like affirm you, your video on this comes up for me in my brain, like re-seeing all the time, that this can be a very lonely place. This space of knowing in your heart and in your gut what your child needs, what your children need, what you want for your family. Here I come crying like Kiva, watch out. That wisdom has been given to you for a reason, and your children need you, and the world needs you. So even though there is this fear and culture says differently, and podcasts and Instagram say punish and discipline and give 3 warnings and all the things, there's another way. There's another way. And there's a community here ready to support you, ready to give you the knowledge and all of the pieces that you need to share this with your family and other families. And do it. Do it. And just know that we see you, we sit with you. That's one of the greatest parts about Jai, is that you have this undercurrent of people saying, keep going, keep going. This is different. It is unusual. It puts people into discomfort. It puts us into discomfort, for heaven's sakes. But I think it's Kiva that taught me discomfort is where growth happens. Without discomfort, we don't have growth. So just praying over each of you and just holding space for, if this is where you're leaning and fear is holding you back, reach out to one of us, and we'd be so happy to hold your hand and walk alongside you in bringing this into being in your family's life.
Thank you, beautiful woman. So good. Brandon, did you have something? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I feel honored and privileged to be the dad, the resident dad, at least on this call. And my heart is for daddyhood, and it breaks my heart to see dads struggle. And yet I think we have this hard wiring built into us that we are meant to struggle, and that there's no change possible. And yet I want to be the poster child for change is possible for dads. And even if that means, taking 2 steps forward and a step back, becoming experts in the world of repair with your children. For all of you who are on this webinar, I imagine that either you are connected to men in your lives who are either parents or who want to become dads. Encourage them to consider this. This is not just, it's hard work, but I just want to encourage men to come on board. It is life-changing, and it will forever change your relationship with your children, and it's worth every dime. It's worth every minute. And so just be loud and upfront about that with the men in your lives.
Thanks for being the dad today, Brandon. It's so good. I was talking to one of our other resident dads, Richard Dixon, last week, and he said for men, they often, it actually makes me feel like I'm going to cry more. Sheesh, people. For men, they often need to get to the point of hitting rock bottom to ask for help. In his words, his clients often have been turned out of the house, and gosh, that's not necessary. And there's so much possibility when dads can model empathy and emotional competency to children, actually more so than from their mothers. This has been proven in research. It's such courageous work, Brandon, to be a dad who's gone first. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. There was one other question that came through around family members. I think we touched on it, but I didn't want you to feel that we didn't get you, Ivy. So what I would say is yes. So the question is, are there other people that, question your parenting, that think you should be doing it differently? Yes. Anyone else? And this is the price of choosing different. I saw this quote the other day that said, the only safe place is the status quo. The only safe place is the status quo. And so there gets to be a willingness to stand in what we know is best for ourselves, for our families, for our children. And the way that I teach this when we do mindset work around it is to practice being a rooted reed. And you've got deep roots into the earth, and the wind is going to blow, and there's going to be hurricanes and people who yell at you and have lots of feelings and emotions. And we can just let that be, because the wind can't actually knock a reed over. So I adore all of you so much. Congratulations on the work that you're doing, on helping other families through this work. I'm so happy to be in collaboration with each of you. Thank you to the audience for your amazing questions, and you just feel the love beaming from the attendee panels. So deep gratitude for you. Pam, Jessica, Brandon, Destini, Maria, Meghan, Cynthia, thank you for your precious time. I'm sure people will be in touch, and we just want to send all of you wishes for peace, for connection, for fulfillment, gratitude, and joy with your children. Have an amazing day, everybody. Bye for now.